Hello, this is Jay Mahaffey from the Scott Learning Center in Scott, Mississippi. Many of you probably already know that we have a real focus on cotton at the Scott Learning Center and plan to continue to do so. Over the last several days, I've made a trip through the Central and South Delta and made some observations about cotton fields that are relevant to the 2017 season. I saw a lot of fields that appeared to be primed for plant growth regulator applications as soon as possible in 2017. We'll need to make those applications at the appropriate rates and timings. All of that is highly dependent on the status of the field, and I saw a lot of fields that appeared to have had a slow start. 2017 season started with cool, wet conditions that led to relatively slow growth. During the last couple of weeks, conditions have shifted toward a circumstance that typically leads toward extremely high growth rates. Those conditions are warm temperatures, rainfall, and somewhat reduced fruit retention. PGRs are among the tools that we as cotton managers use in fields to address those changing conditions. For that reason, we decided this morning to make this video and try to share with you some of the techniques we use at the Scott Learning Center to evaluate new cotton varieties, with the goal being show you that those techniques are equally useful in measuring the growth rates, the growth states, and the status of commercial cotton fields also. So stay tuned and we're going to talk some more about it. One reason that growth monitoring techniques are so useful in cotton fields is the fact that we're growing a perennial indeterminate plant as an annual crop. What that means is we have some monitoring tools and some management tools that we use in cotton fields that force the plant to reallocate its energy from vegetative growth, which is growing plant, back into reproductive growth at the appropriate time through the season. These growth monitoring techniques we're going to discuss this morning are the tools that can help us measure what's actively happening in a cotton field and what's happened in the last few days, so we can then make the right decisions about growth regulators, plant growth regulators. When I'm talking about plant growth regulators, I'm referring to the Mepiquat type products. There are many brands and many types of those available. To make the right decisions about applying those to any given cotton field, there are certain things we need to understand. These monitoring techniques help us with that. There are a lot of factors that influence how an individual field behaves. The variety planted, the soil type, the rotational crops that have been planted, the population that was planted, and more importantly, the standing population that survived in the field, that's existing in the field, and the plant development as driven by environmental conditions are all a factor. They all play a role in how a given cotton field develops. I'd like to discuss a few of these factors that are not quite so obvious in many fields. Traditionally, plant monitoring in many cotton fields has been via using the techniques of fruit accumulation or fruit retention and plant height. They're still useful today. They're equally useful today as they always have been. We make pest management decisions using that information. We oftentimes decide on plant growth regulator applications based on plant height. They're still useful, but there are other techniques we can use that can supplement that information and help us have the ability to make a better decision earlier in the development of the crop. So if you stay tuned a few minutes, we're going to go out to the field and show you a few of those techniques. One of the first measurements and one of the easiest measurements to take in any cotton field is the actual plant height. So I'm just going to pull one of these plants up and we're going to take a couple of measurements of that plant. First thing we need to do to measure the height so that we're all on the same scale is we find the node that the cotyledons were on. It'll be the inner node that's side by side, the one that's in my hand at the moment. We measure from that node to the terminal of the plant using just whatever measuring tool you choose to use. I'm measuring to the uppermost leaf that's fully expanded the size of a quarter. So I would look at this plant and I would conclude it's about 21 inches tall. That's the easiest beginning piece of data we can take in the cotton field. Now we're going to take some other monitoring information that will give us some indication of recent growth rates. Now that we've measured plant height, we need to get an idea of the development of the field, the number of nodes that have developed in the field. Remember, it takes 3 days in normal heat conditions and growth conditions in the field. It takes about 3 days to develop a node. So if I take the cotyledonary node, it's node 0. That's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. This is 12 nodes. We would call that 12 node cotton. All right, now that we've measured the number of nodes and the overall height of the plant, there's some other tools and techniques we can use to give us an idea of how that field's been developing in the last few days. One piece of information that is absolutely vital to know that is the distance of the node that's 4 to 5 from the top of the plant. So I'm talking about the inner node that's between the nodes 4 to 5 from the top, not 4 to 5 from the bottom, 4 to 5 from the top. So if I take that leaf that's expanded the size of a quarter in the terminal, this one, and I call it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's node 5 from the top, that's node 4 from the top. But it's a much easier way to find this node. As a manager of a cotton field, I can walk out in the field and bend these terminals, and it will be that inner node that bends. And I'm going to show you how we do this, how I do this practically on a day-to-day basis. If you look at these plants standing in the field here today, and I walk out and I bend the terminals of them like that, that will be the inner node I'm interested in. That's the inner node that's 4 to 5 from the top. I can rather easily walk through this field and sample 100 of these and know how that inner node has developed in the last few days. The reason this is important is that inner node is most indicative of the growth rate in the field for about the last 3 days. That information is useful to me because it tells me how the field's responded to the recent environment. So now that we've talked about how we identify this inner node that tells us what's happened most immediately in the field, let's talk about how we interpret that information once we get it. If you look at this inner node that's 4 to 5 from the top, remember it's the one that bends. It's this one. This is inner node, or this is node 5 from the top. This is node 4 from the top, not from the bottom. If you look at that inner node and I compare it to the couple below it, that gives me about 10 days worth of growth history in the field. Remember, it takes 3 days to develop a node in normal conditions. If I look at this inner node and it's longer than the couple below it, I know that growth is accelerated and I probably need to consider growth control. You have to do this on a field by field, variety by variety basis. But these are tools that can give you an early warning of what's happening in the field. The important point of this is I can go out and take data like this, of this inner node elongation, very easily using the techniques we showed in the last segment. Go out and bend the top of the plants over and look at how they're developing. Then I can get an idea of what is happening in the field sooner. And that allows me to intercede and use plant growth regulators in the best way possible to optimize the yield potential of most of the cotton fields that we farm in today's world. So let's look at the impact that plant growth regulators can have on that inner node development. I showed you that plot when we first came out where I had applied the first dose of plant growth regulator to the field. This is a plant from that. It's the same variety as that untreated one we were just looking at. If I go out and look, bend the top of this over, you see the inner node that bends. This would be node 4 from the top. This is node 5 from the top. You see that initial dose of plant growth regulator, and we'll talk about doses and rates and timings in a later video. But you see, even that first dose has altered the architecture of this plant. It's changed the way that it is growing, and that's easily identifiable using these techniques and the other things we can go out and measure in the field, appearance, color, and so forth. All of these techniques can be combined together. They can give you early warning of what's happening in cotton fields, so we have a better chance to apply the inputs that we need to and hopefully optimize the yield potential of the cotton fields we're trying to manage. These are two plants side by side. One is an untreated check. One has been aggressively managed with our growth regulators here at the Learning Center plots during 2017. I've lined these up by the cotyledonary node. You see it here at the end of this spindle. You can see that growth was pretty much similar as we proceeded up the plants. Then we made a growth regulator application and we were able to moderate some of this growth in the top because on these soil types and these conditions, growth can be excessive. You see the obvious difference that we've had and that we've made in the growth of these plants. These techniques that we've been talking about this morning can help us to measure this sooner and get an idea of how much success or lack thereof we're having in a given field managing growth. I hope the information we've shared with you this morning at least gives food for thought and some ideas of how you can use some of these techniques in your cotton growing operation. I would welcome anybody that wants to come visit the Scott Learning Center and see these plots later in the year to come by. We're open to the public. All of this is I hope, for the good of modern agriculture. We do have some other resources you can use. Some of you have probably been exposed to our cotton management guide. It has some more detail about some of these monitoring techniques and utility of those. And I just want to say thank you for watching. Please come visit when you can. Give us a call anytime we can help. We'd be happy to try. Thank you for listening. I'm Jay Mahaffey from the Scott Learning Center, and we'll see you this summer.
This video was produced by the Monsanto Water Utilization Learning Center.